Just a couple of things. This evening you'll have the nuggets with the quizzes for this week ready, and also the second level of the game in the app. For people using Mac, we have a little bug that we have to fix. So when you try to load the new level, load the career again, the complete course again, okay? So that everything will show up. Is that right, Javi? Okay. Second thing is we have a little change in the program, and next week we'll have on Thursday Ronen Benning, the CEO and co-founder of Coach Inc., presenting for the class instead of the last Thursday of January. Okay, has some commitments on the 29th, so he asked to come next week. So we'll have to compress everything for next week on Tuesday. Okay. Any questions or any issues you're gonna talk about?
Coach Inc., you said?
Coached, C-O-A-C-H-D. Okay, I think that's the name. Ronen Benning is his name. Any questions or comments about last class? Any issues with readings? Anything? No? Okay, so instead of going for the presentations that we were working on last week, we're gonna go into how to prepare the business plan, so that we get the first assignment started and you start doing some real stuff. And then we'll see if on Tuesday we can go back to those ideas and opportunities before we get into the agile management method. Okay. So let's get started with the Lean method for startups that will end up with how to build your personal business plan.
Joining me now is Eric Ries. He's the author of The Lean Startup, How Today's Entrepreneurs Use Continuous Innovation to Create Radically Successful Businesses. Eric, welcome to Bloomberg West.
Thanks for having me on.
So, what is the Lean Startup? What does that mean?
We call it lean by analogy to lean manufacturing. Just as you said, we're living in an exciting time where entrepreneurship is being democratized, where more and more people have access to it because costs have come down. But also, the speed with which new ideas can be tested and tried has gotten a lot faster. And that, I think, is the really exciting part of what is happening. We can run a lot more experiments, and what we're starting to realize is that a startup is really nothing more than a gigantic experiment to discover if we're on the path to a sustainable business.
Now, we know companies are cheaper to start than ever before, and there are, because of that, more startups out there than ever before. You have companies like Instagram, for example, which, you know, an experiment turned into a wild success. But just because companies are easier to start doesn't mean that they're all going to succeed. Does that mean there's just more failures out there?
There is a lot more failures by volume, for sure. And in fact, anyone who's telling the truth about what entrepreneurship is really like will admit that there's going to be a lot of failure for every success. But even in the cases of the seemingly overnight successes like Instagram, if you go behind the curtain, and we saw this at the conference yesterday, you'll see, you know, usually a year or two of failure that preceded it. It requires that failure, that learning, in order to discover what really works with the thing, with the experiment that actually starts to take off.
Let me ask about, you know, lean manufacturing is really Weight Watcher manufacturing. It's about taking a fat organization and making the process lean. Whereas the lean businesses you talk about start off lean. Is, you know, I think one of the important things is something we try to talk about on the show all the time. How do you take a fat company and make it lean?
Lean manufacturing taught the world to look at every production process with the lens, what creates value and what creates waste. And then once you have that lens, you realize, oh, let's get rid of the waste, focus on the value.
The companies you're talking about starting with outsourced production elements.
That's right.
When you've got an in-source production model, is it about tossing out those production elements?
It's not really about outsourcing. Instead of in manufacturing where we want to leanly, efficiently create more stuff, in entrepreneurship the big problem is we're often not building the right stuff at all. So we want to, as efficiently and as quickly as possible, discover what the right things to build are. And that's what these new tools and techniques are really key for.
You're saying you give startups a scientific approach to manage their budding company, but is that really possible?
We'll see. The truth is, we don't know. We're at the very beginning of what I think is a revolution in the practice of entrepreneurship. And the biggest realization that I've had in the course of being part of that movement is that entrepreneurship is really a management discipline. It's the management discipline that deals with situations of high uncertainty. But I think what we're discovering is that even though we're going to have a lot of failure, even though we make mistakes, we can engineer our process to fail faster, to learn more from each mistake, and then do what we call the pivot. Change direction before it's too late.
It's this pivot word, you know, it actually means the first thing didn't work and we're going to do something else. It's become kind of a cool term for some reason here in Silicon Valley. No, it's fine. I mean, how many times should a startup be allowed to pivot?
Well, there's no rigid formula, but I want to be real clear. People use the word pivot sometimes just to mean like any kind of change or just randomly try something new. No, a pivot is a change in strategy without a change in vision. And what happens is when companies, you know, like Groupon that spent their first year building The Point, the online activism platform, when they don't get any traction, they make the pivot. And then the first Groupon was something like 2-for-1 pizza for the pizza restaurant in the lobby of that restaurant. And I know everyone watching would say, well, if I was there, I would have known 20 pizzas sold, that means billion-dollar company. But the reality is because they had that year of failure, they understood how significant it was to get 20 people to do, frankly, anything at all.
It's actually another aspect of companies knowing if they're going to succeed is not just the lower cost, but a much bigger market online. You know, the stat I always throw out is that there were 900,000 people with high-speed internet in 1999. Today, in the U.S. alone, there are over 82 million. Worldwide, over 2 billion. A bigger market's got to be a part of that.
Absolutely, and not just a bigger market, but what we call a continuous path to scale. You can use the same development tools and the same distribution tools to reach your first 5 customers as your next 5 million customers.
So there is a continuous scale for every business. Groupon's a perfect example. The cheap pizzas might have been a good business. A company with, you know, Groupon's losing money hand over fist. And has, you know, unpaid payables that are also mounting. Maybe
you don't want to get them started on
I'm saying not every business can be as gigantic, even if the cost is low. To a certain point, how does the low cost of manufacturing tell businesses, here's your sweet spot, don't get too big for your britches?
Well, our goal is to learn what the real scale of our business is. And instead of making an elaborate business plan and crazy financial models to try to predict what's going to happen, we simply take an empirical approach to say, you know, if Groupon works in one city, it probably will work in others. And if we can figure out what the unit costs and the marginal profitability is in each city, we can figure out how to replicate it. Now, whether Groupon ultimately will make that model work remains to be seen. But the experiment's been really valuable.
Eric Ries, author of The Lean Startup. A lot of excitement about your book out there. I can't wait to read it. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, what do we get away from the video, from the interview?
Scotia iTrade gives you an advantage.
Sorry, anyone?
Entrepreneurs have to be able to adapt.
Just a little louder.
Entrepreneurs have to be able to adapt really quickly, and we're talking about this pivot where you change your strategies, but you keep your goals in mind, your vision for your company, and that's something people have to do constantly nowadays, is be able to adapt to change.
Okay, adapt to change. The pivot idea will go back to that. Change without changing change the strategy without changing the vision, and adaptation.
It's a lot easier nowadays to be a startup, but because of that, there's a lot more failures as well because they don't really, I guess, have the right formula yet for a very successful company.
Yeah, there's no right formula at the beginning of a startup. And part of the whole idea of the startup is to find that formula for you. And then we'll go here.
It's important to experience failure to learn from it, and now companies are going through the failure part faster to learn faster and change what they need to change.
I think that's also very important. The myth of everything successful is successful from the very beginning, that doesn't exist. You have seen most of the companies that they have been talking about, startups, start with 1-2 years of trying things, trying to innovate in their own processes and failing. They don't really know what the customers want, if what they built is exactly the match that people need, etc. Even if you think in figures like Steve Jobs, he was kicked out of Apple, and then he went to work on Pixar, he came back. So there's a lot of failure in any adventure in life, but even more in startups. So try to be reasonable about your ideas, try to distance yourselves from them, and learn when you have to pivot, when you have to change, when you have to move into another part of the strategy.
No, mine was already said.
Okay, more ideas from the interview.
It's important to figure out like what creates value and then what creates waste, and to try to alleviate these.
Yeah. The important thing about, one of the most important thing about both the business model generation method and the Lean Canvas method that we're going to see later is that everything is about value. What brings value to your idea? Remember that on Tuesday we were talking about the difference between an idea and an opportunity. And it's value what bridges both things. So everything is about value and getting rid of the waste that doesn't add anything to the company, to the project, to the product.
Yeah, like building on that, in the beginning he was talking about being efficient and making the right kind of business and the right kind of product, and that's pretty subjective, but we could probably all have an idea of what that means.
Okay, why is it subjective?
Because what is the right business?
Who says that?
Right.
No, that's my question. Who says that?
The customer probably.
Exactly. No, probably no. The customers, the market says if the business is right or not, which is different from the idea. You might have a very good idea, but you are not able to implement it in the way that the market needs it at that very moment. Or you don't find the customers, or you make some mistakes in the process. So who says? The market, your customers, your people, the people you have built, whatever you have built for. That's the answer. Who are in the sciences here? Raise your hands. Okay. Is there anything that resembles the process of research in science from what he says?
I'm not in science, but I'm going to take a stab at this. Usually when you do a science experiment, you have a hypothesis, then you do the experiment, and then you see how it works out, and if it's bad, you redo it, or if it's good, you progress it. In his book, The Lean Startup, he talks about how there's a cycle of what you need to do when you start a business. You make it, you put it out there, and then you learn from that.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially what you do.
Yeah, he mentioned several times the idea of experiment, and they are taking that idea from the sciences, from a lab, from a science lab, in which you have an idea, you have a method, an hypothesis you're going to try, and the experiment will tell you if you were right or not. What they try to figure out is how to make the whole process of the startup, not just the first idea, into a huge science experiment, a completely experimental approach in which you will have to test through several steps what you are doing and see if that's right or not. Okay, so they are doing that metaphor in a very conscious way. It's not just something that he made up. It's an experiment, and you have to test it. You have to try, and you have to see what the market says back to you. Any more ideas? Any more comments about the video or things derived from the video that you're thinking about?
It was interesting when he was talking about the path to scale, about how if your idea starts to work, you can start implementing it in other places to kind of maximize your potential.
One of the things that they say is that once you start growing, what you have to do is keep using this lean startup approach. You keep cycling through the whole business plan and the business model and the operations and every single part, following exactly the same method that you use to start. Because otherwise you start becoming a fat kind of company, in which just running the company and accumulating waste in the process becomes the only objective of the whole group. You don't have energy or resources to do anything else. It's always to keep the idea of stay lean, focus on what gives value, get rid of all the rest. Okay? So how do you do this? Anyone has any ideas? Someone who has some experience? Okay, there are several approaches. We're gonna see briefly just two of them, and they are very similar. The Lean Canvas is a derivative of the business model generation with some variations and a different product. But the process here comes from the ideas of some of the most important entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley, and all revolves about these two lines. Okay. So we started on Tuesday talking about an enterprise being the projection of a problem looking for a solution, or the other way around, something that will match a market need. This is still the starting point. You have to find a problem a problem that people needs to be solved, and you are going to solve it by offering your services or your product. And remember that the end product of this exercise will be your personal business plan. So you will have to apply this to your own education, your own training, and your own coming out to the market. Okay, so you have to find a problem to solve in order to do this exercise. The first thing you do is you build an initial business model, and this is very important. This is very initial. As we did the other day when we did the team exercises, the first thing you have to do is, how do I transform this idea into a product in a place with constraints, that is, in a real place. And immediately after that, you think, who's going to pay for that, how much they're going to pay, and how much this is going to cost me, to see if the thing is viable from the very beginning or not. But this is a very initial plan. Doesn't mean that if you got it right at this point, it's going to hold the whole process. Okay? Then the hard part starts, and this is a metaphor. There is a metaphor that people use in the Lean Startup process, by which they keep saying, "Get out of the building." People in startups tend to stay inside, writing code, trying to improve it, doing stuff from the computers, and never getting out to where the public is. The first thing that anyone working on a startup will tell you is, once you have the initial prototype and the initial business model, don't go to the office. The office doesn't need you there for anything. You have to get out of the building or wherever you are and go where the customers are, because you have to find them. If you don't have customers, you don't have anything. This is one of the most important things said in the book, Four Steps to Epiphany. Okay, one of the Bibles of Lean Startup processes that I highly recommend. So you have an idea, you want to do something, get out of the building. In the case of the project that you have to develop, is get out there, and if you're gonna try to work for, I don't know, a hospital, NGO, university, high school, get out there and see if someone will hire you with the kind of curriculum that you're gonna build while you are here. If you don't have customers, you don't have a product, you don't have a service. Okay? You have to validate your customers. We'll see a couple of ideas there. Then when you have validated your customers and you know that you have a customer base, you will try to implement agile development practices to create the leanest possible product that you can use to get out into the market. You don't need to become Apple or to become the best doctor in the world to be a doctor the first time, okay? Or to build the first product. You just need the basic features that people need, okay? And remember that if you're gonna work in technology, there is these statistics about only, I think it's 17% of features that you have in any software application are used by every user. Only 17%. But people in the process of developing software, and I accuse myself of that, keep adding features. And the process never ends, because we want this in a more beautiful way. We want these people to do this. We have this idea about how cool this would be if we add this button. At the end of the day, you don't have the basic product that people need. And you have like 74% of the features that you have built that nobody will ever use. Okay?
How do you create barriers to entry while developing and while implementing agile development process? Okay,
the question is how do you build barriers for other competitors to enter the market that you are trying to create? And that's a very difficult proposition. It's one of the most important and difficult things to do. If you talk to people in the sector of technology, at least they will tell you two things. One is protecting your IP, intellectual property, by creating a patent or by creating trademark on the brand.
How can you, it's $10,000, that's not lean at all.
That's what costs to get into the market. Or you have something that they are not able to replicate immediately. That's the second answer. Okay? You will have, we'll have when Mark comes in February, I hope it will be in February, from the robotics company, that he will tell you that one of the most important mistakes that he made was to spend, I think it was almost $20,000 when he was starting in a patent that he never used. And there's a lot of discussion. You talk to lawyers in the sector, they will tell you, of course they will tell you, because they will do the process and they will charge you. Okay, you need a patent, you need to protect this, etc., etc. So you have to be very cautious about what you do. But many venture capitalists won't give you a dime unless you have something protected, somehow. Normally with a patent in the States, because here in Canada it's more difficult to go around all the patent processes. Okay? And then when you have all these steps covered, all these bases, you are starting to build your company. But building the company, assigning positions, deciding who is the CEO, the VP, all the titles, that's the last part. Even if you remember the interview with the Instagram founders, they just split the responsibilities, and at some point, yes, someone will be named CEO because the market and the investors and partners will need that someone is responsible. But for the first few months, even years, it's who is going to do what, depending on your resources and your skills. Okay? Oops. Let's go back. Okay, as I said, you have to do these two things. This is the most important part in the business plan. Okay, so you have to do 4 things: discover where and who your customers are, customer validation. This is probably the most important thing, and there are several methods for this. What people are using the most these days, at least in technology, are polls and interviews with sectors that you think they are going to be your customers. Okay, for instance, you are starting a tutoring company. You have to talk to teachers and to fathers, and you need hard data on whether they are willing to pay, how much they are willing to pay, for how long, what kind of subjects, all those things. It is very easy to do because you can go to SurveyMonkey or one of those tools and build your thing there and get your friends to give it to the parents and teachers that you know, and all those things. But you need hard data about what you are proposing. You need to know how much they are paying, how much you're going to have in margins, how many customers you're going to have, can you move to another city, all those things. Okay? If not, you'll have to create the customer somehow, but this is one of the most difficult propositions. Okay? And the last part is company building. When you are here and you have validated and you are starting to create a base of customers, the thing is to have a good enough customer service so that they don't abandon you. Okay? So you start building, and you are from that base, building up, and you don't lose what you already have. I know that we all have terrible experiences with many companies, and how fast you want to leave them because they don't give you the basic customer service. Okay? Next thing. Okay, the Lean Canvas. Lean Canvas is just a website which is leancanvas.com, which offers a template to go through this process. You have to register there, or in the business model generation site, what they have is an app for the iPad. The good thing about the Lean Canvas is that it's a little leaner, I would say, more clear, and they have educational accounts. So you can get one for free and experiment with them as much as possible. Okay? What the founder of Lean Canvas says is that he adapted some of the other models, like the business model generation, to address what he thought were the most important issues when you are starting. Okay? So he tried to create a model to help people start in those months or years of your project in which you are living in complete uncertainty. You don't know what's going on, you don't have models because your product is new, you don't have the financial backup, everything is new. You don't know if you are going to survive 2 more months, you are living off pizzas, there are people like Ronen, for instance, will tell you that he has been building a company, and at the same time he was cleaning snow at 5 o'clock in the morning until 10, so that he will have the income, the basic income, to devote himself to the company for the rest of the day. So you're going to live in those times for a long time. So how do you manage all that process in which everything is about uncertainty? You don't have a market, you don't have anything. Second important idea, define the problem and define it well. Go through as many cycles and iterations as you need. People in Instagram, people in Dropbox. There is a video by the founder of Dropbox saying how they went from 100,000 users when they launched to in 4 or 6 months to millions of customers, just because they started the process of the lean startup that we have seen there, and they just started asking the customers what they wanted instead of being people in the company designing new features that nobody wanted, or they didn't know if people wanted it or not. Define the problem. Okay? Can anyone give an example of what you are thinking to do when you finish university that you can define in terms of a problem that you want to solve? Whether it's a company or it's your own life, can you phrase that in terms of a problem that needs definition and solution? You don't have problems. That's happy life. Yes?
Well, my mom doesn't know how to use a computer that well, so like, it's frustrating when she asks me to help her. So that'd be cool to have a product that'd be easy for older people to use. Okay. One of the problems is how to make old people work with computers. That's not solved yet, and we're growing a larger and larger population of old people who are going to be there. So that's a challenge. That's a challenge. Yes, Brian?
Maybe technology is increasing too quickly to a point where we need to slow down.
Okay. Can you be a little more specific?
Yeah, sure. I couldn't get to bed like the other night because all of a sudden Google has a prototype for their Google Glasses coming out soon, and then there's rumors the 5S is launching, and then like something else happens, and I actually couldn't go to bed because I had to read about all this stuff. So I think it's getting to a point where it's actually increasing too quickly, and it's only going to get faster and faster, and then there's debates whether or not the singularity is a good or bad thing, but there might be, maybe it's a niche market, but some sort of like retro approach or a movement that like slows things down a bit.
Like slow food movement for technology. Yeah? Okay, more ideas. More ideas, more problems. Remember that you have to define your project starting on Thursday in terms of a problem to solve. Yes.
The education system is just far too behind with technology. There needs to be a website like Facebook or something where all my readings and all my assignments are there, and I can see what's there. If a teacher changes a due date, it changes online, and maybe foster some sort of community where I can ask questions of my classmates without making all these Facebook groups for all my classes.
Absolutely agree with that.
In the same direction, education in terms of the way that we work now is it's pretty aging, and the way that teachers, I'm not saying you, but I'm just saying in terms of that
you're gonna fail this class.
the way that most classes are formed, or the way that they happen, is not beneficial for us, and because of that we lack, I guess future knowledge.
Okay. Okay, I have a question about this because that's something that I wanted to ask the other day when you identified several problems on campus, which I think are really important. My question is, what are you doing about them? Are you waiting to be out of education to try to change it? What is it that you are missing? Exactly, the activeness. A programmer. Okay. Why the? It's the idea is what Commissar says in his book, chapter 4, the deferred life. Are you gonna do it when you are 75 and we'll start an education, an university for all people? You have to enjoy education while you are here, and I think that there are ways to make teachers and the administration change their ways, even if it's a challenge, because, as I said, what you are living through today, we didn't even expect. I mean, I went to my first stay abroad experience when I was already in grad school to England, Bristol, and that was the first time I saw an email. It was starting this year. And since then, the speed of the changes are huge. And many people thought that some of these things will never catch up, things that people were trying with the no and all those things. So there are a lot of people who are behind already. And I don't know if they will, even if they are not all by any means, and with 45 they still have 20 years ahead in their careers. But there are many other people who could be adopting many of the things that you say. There is another problem which is very important and has to do with the speed of the change and the complexity of the world we are going to live in, we are already living, is that we are preparing people for works that don't, for jobs that don't exist yet. And we don't know how they're going to be. So one of the things is how to prepare people in a wide enough way so that you have the skills to reinvent yourself and to apply it to any sector that you will be into when you go out there.
I was just going to say, like, what I've noticed is that for, I don't know, I guess I'll just say 100 years, just to throw out a number, we've been prepared to have a job, not like solve problems. Like we come to school and we learn finance, or we learn marketing, or we learn something else, and then they say, okay, this is what you're going to do, and then this is your job. It's not like, okay, here's the bigger picture. We need to teach you how to solve bigger problems so we can advance society. And I think like that's an issue. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay. My question again is, are you going to do something?
Well, to myself, I've vowed to myself that I will not work for like that type of job. I won't put myself in a place. If I don't have an impact, I'm not going to work there.
Okay. I dare you to work, if you want, in groups to create a prototype of what you would like to see in your education, and to send it to the administration at the end of this class. If you do it, I'll bring the provost to listen to you, to the class. And anyone participating in these groups will get 20% extra marks at the end of the class. Okay? Easy. Do it. Because otherwise you are becoming the kinds of people that other people are. We just talk about solving the problems. Solve the problem.
That's the same thing. It's like Marx again. It's like, no,
okay, I take it off. I'll do two things which are, I think, more important. First, I'll bring the provost or the president to listen to you, but you have to develop a good plan. So you have to work on that. Second, I'll invite you to a bottle of wine, which is much more. Okay? Fair enough? But do something. What are you waiting for?
That's just my preference. Everybody else might want the Marx.
Okay, we'll offer both things, the wine stream and the Marx stream. Okay, some comments? You want to say something? You want both? Okay, that's a smart answer. Okay, so the third thing, create a solution. Okay, create a solution for your problem. And the fourth thing is measuring your approach. And one of the advices that they offer is that when you are starting, you cannot play with many different measurements at the same time, because you get confused. You are starting, you are living in the middle of the ocean with a lot of storms, and you don't really know what is it that you have to follow to know if you are on the right track. Okay? So what they say is focus on one measurement at a time. For instance, you are starting a business online. What is it that you want? Visits in Google Analytics, people who have registered this type of user, people who have converted from just registered users into paying customers. What is it that you need at the beginning of the process to keep growing? Okay, decide on what is that specific measurement that will help you identify whether or not you are on track. Okay, and go with one measurement at a time. Okay, important also that you introduce this in your personal business plan. How do you protect your idea, your product? You have to know what is your unfair advantage. What is it that you have that nobody else has? Okay? This is really difficult because, as we said, things change very fast. Communication goes through networks, so every single node is connected to the others somehow. But you have to really know what's that thing that you have, that secret recipe that nobody else has. If you have money, get a patent. Okay, so you will get into the venture capitalist world much easier. And finally, you have to phrase what is your value proposition. Again, tell the story, even if it's in a little square, and it's the template we have, but you have to bring something to the market, to the people, that has value for them and that has value for you. Okay? That will be the end result of this part. What you have in the Lean Canvas is just a website in which you can use this kind of template to build any kind of business plan. Okay? What they recommend is that you use this as an artist, as a designer, even that you print it out and you play with the sticky notes for each single idea that you want to put in it. Oops. Any single idea that you want to put in these squares, and you start bouncing them off your team, your mentors, people that you're going to bring in so that they can help you. But do it with your hands. Remove it. Throw them away. Start again. And do that for every single customer segment that you're going to try. Okay? It's not just something... What's going on here? No, it's the other way. It's not something that you're gonna use to have a very nice document at the end. Okay? It's like you're in a workshop and you have to do many of these until you get the right one. Okay? In this case, we have the problem here. You have the solution, competition, and the key metrics that you're gonna use to measure your success. What is your unfair advantage? Could you have that nobody else has? How are you going to reach your customers? Okay? What kind of customer segments you'll have? Remember, you have to divide your market into the smaller segments possible, the smallest segment possible, so that you really address them in the way they need. Who are your early adopters? You will need for people to follow them. You have to convince these people so that you have a net effect on the market. Okay? And then you have the high-level concept and your unique value proposition here. The end cost structure, to do all this, you're going to have to pay whatever you say here, okay, on the left side of the canvas. And here is what you're going to get from your market. You have to match, and hopefully this number at the end will be larger than the number on the left and will keep growing throughout the process. This is a canvas for today. It's not a financial projection of what you're going to be doing in 3 or 5 years. This is what you are going to do tomorrow because we are starting now. Okay? And then you will make it evolve until the moment you want. So that's why you have to do many of these for each single moment that you want to plan. The other possibility, you can work with either of them, whatever you prefer, is to use the business model generation. The idea here is that they not only provide the template, either in paper or in the iPad application. It is that they wrap it up in a whole model in which there is another important concept that we're going to be working on in a few weeks, which is design thinking. Okay? How you get together with a group of people and start working as a designer to build, to give shape to your plan, to your product. And you do it manually as a designer with papers. Forget the computers, forget all the high tech, and start with papers, just drawing, designing, writing what you are going to do, and bouncing that off with a team. And do that as many times as you will need. Okay, there is no magic formula with this. But you have to do this with your hands. You have to feel it. Okay, you have to get it into a certain shape and you will know when the shape is correct. So that's why they have these sections in the book about design thinking, which I really recommend. Will be a sort of an introduction for the thing we're going to see in a few classes. Okay. Again, the idea is, where is the value in the whole process that you're creating? Where is the value? Identify it and extract it. You have to go through 9 blocks, like in the Lean Canvas process. For the market, you have the market on the right, your product on the left. Okay? Customer segments. At this point, you already have gone through the process of customer validation, or you have to do it in order to get this right. Again, same thing with channels. How are you going to get them? Your product or your service. Okay? What is the most appropriate channel for the kind of thing you are trying to sell or get out there? How are you going to take care of your people or of your customers? And finally, what are your revenue streams? How and what they're going to pay. Okay? Both things are important. If you're going to have a monthly subscription, just one-time payment, pay as you go, what is it that you are selling and how you're going to sell it. Okay? Are the revenue streams sustainable, or are you going to build up a business in which people will pay just the first time, and then you'll have to keep acquiring new customers all the time? You have to think about all these things. Okay? And match them. This is very important. These streams have to match the customer segments, because probably they will change, they will vary from segment to segment. And you have to match the two things. Then you have your product and your company. What resources do you need to build your product or your company? Programmers, designers, people who do things with fashion, with, I don't know, what is it that you need in human capital and in financial resources mainly. Okay? What key activities you need? Remember that the group that came up to the front on Tuesday, they had started to divide the work. Someone was doing financing, someone was doing accounting, someone doing sales, all those things. You have to divide them. What is it that you need to get you to the point you want to get? Partnerships. Can you get into the market through partnerships instead of going directly? Can you get, for instance, a publisher to sell your product with a cut for them? Can you go with someone who is already established and you don't have to build up completely your sales force? Sorry. And finally, how much is all this going to cost? Okay? Revenue streams, cost structures on the left. Market and product, and in the middle you have, as the end result of the whole process, your value proposition, and you will see if it has any value or not. This is the book. You can find it online. You can find it in many formats and ways. If you don't find it in the library, it's quite a fat book, but it's a lot about pictures and it's very visual. So you really read it in a very short period of time. And once you get the basics, you will use them for every single project. It doesn't have to be a startup. Anything that you do would require some complex management. You can use this kind of thing to organize any event, to do anything like a little more complex, in which there are people from different fields collaborating with you. Okay, and this is what you have to do starting today. Okay. You have to write a personal business plan. This is the first assignment, made up of 3 documents: a text, a Lean Canvas or a business model generation canvas that you will export as a PDF, and your process of customer validation. Okay? The 3 of them are really important. So work hard on all of them. For the text, you have to structure it in these sections. It's your personal name, or you are going to work on a product or a service that you want to open immediately or when you finish. Have an executive summary. Remember that this is the thing that you say to someone who's going to buy your product or fund your company if you have 2 minutes. So you have in the elevator, this is your elevator pitch, 2 sentences. My project, my problem is this, and I solve it this way. Okay? And it has to be catchy, because otherwise people won't keep listening to you. This is one of the most important parts, and probably is the thing you have to do at the end. 1 paragraph. In 3 years, I will be doing this. Define your problem. Okay? Define it in terms of your personal life. And remember, don't defer your life. Okay? How are you going to get there? This is the beginning of your strategy. 2 paragraphs. Which problem are you solving? 2 paragraphs in which you will take this. In 3 years I will do that, and you will start showing the match with society, with the market, with the outside world that you are going to meet out there. Okay? You will phrase it as a problem that some people need solved. What is your value proposition? What is your value in the thing you are building, and how you are going to make people pay for that? What is your method for customer validation? Who are your customers, and why are they going to pay you? Okay? You have to show evidence. Remember that this is an experiment. Polls are good, interviews are good, market research is good, but the market research has to be translated into real customers. Okay? When you go about customer validation, remember the sentence: get out of your bedroom. Get out there and talk to the people who are going to be your customers. Cost structure. How are you going to pay? What is it that you're going to pay to get there in 3 years? Okay? Your revenues. You need to live in the process. And hopefully you need someone paying for you to live, doing what you want to do. Okay? And then finally, to keep thinking, you have designed all this beautiful plan, but your life continues. So you want to start planning the next phase. What are you going to be doing in 5 years? Okay? Then, third document, you have the text, the link canvas, which is a visualization of this that you have to iterate many times. Evidence of your customer validation with, if you have polls with a zip or a PDF or whatever you want to do that will show us that you have been talking to real people about your problem. Okay? Questions?
So can that be like an email chain, or like you're emailing like a manager about?
For the customer validation, you mean? As long as you identify real people doing the thing, or create a poll online so that people will answer, or
as long as they can be tracked.
Can be tracked, and it's real people, okay. Not only your family and friends. And don't ask people sitting beside you to answer the poll, please. Yes.
A link canvas? What do you mean by that?
A link canvas is the document that I have shown with the 9 segments that you can find in here. Okay. Okay. This is one of the 2 examples. The other is the business model generation example. This is free. If you are a student or someone in academia. So, yes, have you?
Okay, that's it.
Okay. When is this due?
28.
In 2 weeks or 3 weeks? I don't know the syllabus by heart. At the end of January. Yeah, something like that. If you need any help with this, just come to the office hours or email us, or bounce off any ideas with the class, whatever you want. More questions? No? Okay, then we'll go. Question?
Oh, no.
Oh, you're waving. Okay. Then we'll start on Tuesday with the agile management techniques. Okay? Good weekend.